Hello and welcome to the Managing Madrid Podcast! Madrid! 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 Woo! Woo! Thank you guys so much for coming out. For those listening at home and they're confused, we're actually in Chicago, which is just an awesome place so far. Thank you so much for coming out. I know there's for me personally, Chicago is every podcast is special, but Chicago, I got a chance to meet people for the first time, people who I've read their names on the podcast. One of my childhood friends who I've actually never met. There's a cool story about that, but I met him for the first time today. And just meeting a lot of people who have been listening to us, and I feel like I know some of you guys, even though we've never met, and that's a really special moment for me. So thank you for coming out. So I just want to say, planning these podcasts sometimes is tricky because it's La Liga's fault. We have these things lined up for months in advance, and while we try to have our shit together, La Liga does not have its shit together, and we don't know when the games are. So when we say Chicago in April on this weekend, we have no idea when Real Madrid is actually going to play Sevilla. Is it on Saturday? Is it on Sunday? We did that Washington, D.C. podcast it was the Mallorca game, and they actually scheduled it for Monday. And this is, for us, it's kind of like first world problems kind of thing. But for people who travel and go to the Bernabeu for the games, it's insanely inconvenient because sometimes La Liga will actually switch the day of the game last minute. And some, there's Champions League games in between, so sometimes there's postponements, and Real Madrid will ask for an extra day or whatever. And so people I've seen this so many times, people rushing from Barajas Madrid airport to the Bernabeu with luggage and not knowing what to do. So that's just a little bit of La Liga slander before we start. Today is so today is so what, do you take some pictures just throughout, or do you have your?
Yeah, it's
okay.
It's on.
Yeah, people just take pictures. That'll be hot, and at any point and send them to me. Today's podcast is going to be incredibly interactive. We're going to have you guys on as much as we possibly can. We're recording this Saturday at almost 1 p.m. So that's the context. We did watch a little bit of Manchester City. I watched the first half anyway today. We'll do a little bit of scouting reports. And to start this podcast, I wanted to welcome Alex Ruiz. So Alex Ruiz is the founding member and president. I actually practiced this 3 times introducing you to the people, so I still got it. Founding member and president of the Peña Madridista in Chicago. And I actually wanted to ask you if you can say a little bit about the Peña, how it was formed, your experience, and maybe just a little bit about what you guys are doing right now.
Yeah, certainly. And welcome everyone who made it today. When we started in the years that Barcelona was winning every trophy away from Madrid. So it was a few years, maybe 4 or 5 years, that we were struggling to make a big impact in La Liga and different tournaments. And I had some friends that we were trying to watch a Real Madrid game somewhere at a bar where we're not with other Barcelona fans and they're not bothering us or making fun of us. So it started with 4 of us just going to a bar, and then they would see people would see us with our white jerseys and say, "Oh, you're Real Madrid fans?" Yeah, and they would come to the tables and sit with us. And then we started to think, okay, we should make this a club. We should make it, and we started doing research on how to become an official club. So this was back in 2010, 2011 that I started with my friends, going back and just trying to find a place where we would watch a Real Madrid game. And in 2013, we became an official Peña. Coincidentally enough, it was the game that they came to University of Michigan, and we had that record crowd in the stadium. Yeah, against Man United. And that's where they gave us an official plaque recognizing us as an official. It was a great year, and that's when we won the Decima as well. Right after that, Yeah, we met Florentino, Butragueño, and we saw Bell in the hotel when he joined the team. People were excited when Chicharito was that rumors that he was coming to Madrid, and that was the last game that he played with Manchester United. But yes,
Chicharito, who's in town tonight.
He's in town tonight, and we have 2 tickets to give away today as a prize for
nice little surprise there.
Nice little surprise. So we have 2 tickets for the Chicago Fire game tonight, yeah. So it's been a wild roller coaster, just keeping up with the team.
That was the most watched game, right?
That was the most attended, most attended. I believe most watched as well. But friendly game. That's we met a lot of Madridistas there. We met a lot of people eager to start their own peñas. That's where Atlanta started thinking about becoming a peña. Houston started to talk about becoming a peña. At that time, it was only Los Angeles and New York that had a peña. There was a Madrid peña as well back then, but it was about 9 old Spaniards watching the games at a bar, and they were very.
That sounds amazing, actually.
And no, they were very exclusive. They didn't want to bring anyone else in. So people from that came from Florida and Miami in particular started thinking about how do we become and what's the process of becoming an official peña, and that's it took me and a couple of friends going to New York, going to LA to meet those peñas, those people, to figure out and talk to their presidents, figure out what the process is. And oddly enough, it's 2022, and the process is as slow as it is today as it was back then. And that's the way that Madrid does things last minute as La Liga. They change the games on us. They tell us, oh yeah, there are tickets available with 5 days in advance. If someone wants to travel to Madrid with a very short notice, that's how they do it. But it's good. It's rewarding to see and to see and know people that go to Madrid and have a game at Bernabeu with other peñistas and just that atmosphere. And they bring back with them like a huge smile when they come back to the club and go to Aegis and tell us about their experience over there. So it's been a long road and very rewarding for me.
It's
awesome.
I mean, that's never been also, like, people, I don't know, some people will know, obviously, and you will know, but it's incredibly difficult to run a peña. Like, the amount of events and all the stuff you have to plan for, and, it's just a place where Madridistas come together. It's amazing, like, hearing your story. It's very universal, too, with peñas and some of the frustrations with the tickets and getting everyone together. But one of my fondest experiences was we did a podcast, and this was obviously pre-pandemic, in Madrid. And it happened to be at a time where like 3 different peñas were in town. I think there was one from Scandinavia. There was one, I think it was from West Coast. I think there was one from DC. And they were all there at the same time. And it was just like this incredible place with like peñas meeting in Madrid. And it was following a Manchester City. It was the Manchester City game, Ramos red card, Isco goal, that one. It was like around that time. But everyone was in town, and it was an amazing experience. So part of the reason I also wanted to bring you up here today was because I wanted to ask you, in terms of Real Madrid emotional roller coasters, this past month has been about as jam-packed as I can remember as a Real Madrid fan. And you guys must have gotten together for those PSG and Chelsea games, right? So talk about the experience of that. I'm just curious to know what the atmosphere and the kind of the mood was like.
Yeah, it was very exciting getting past the group stage. Honestly, I didn't believe that we had a team to go as far as we have, and with the changes, not the last minute schedules, but trying to figure out is the game on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, what time? Well, usually the same times, but who's the next opponent? It's hard to bring people to the games during a work week. And also, if you have heart problems, you shouldn't be on the or you should be, but put it in your will. It's a constant struggle, just trying to get people together. lucky for us, we have AJ Hudson's, and their sister bar. This is where we're meeting today at Albion Manor. They're very gracious. They took us in from day one to watch the games over there at their place. No questions asked, as other places were putting requirements on us to bring people in for them to show the game with sound. But we watch the games over there. It's a lot of fun. People do tend to show up, even if it's on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and it's fun to see more than 10 people at a time just enjoying, suffering with us along as we go, and seeing that face of relief and excitement when Madrid turns around and wins the game for us. It's just amazing to have that camaraderie with other Madridistas in Chicago in particular. We have many visitors as well that come from Spain, Germany, China, Japan, that come in and watch the game with us because they found where we were, and their sole purpose for that day is to come and watch the game with us.
So people, like, part of the benefit of these podcasts we do around the world is that we have the listeners who come out who don't know about the Pena, and then we have Pena members who don't necessarily know about the podcast. And it's really nice because there's a lot of, and I met people in this room already who, and I was the same way growing up. Like, I didn't have any friends to talk about Real Madrid with. And I felt like I was the only just random kid in my neighborhood who even cared about this. And not only cared about it, but was like psychotic about it. And people thought I was crazy. So it's just like part of the reason we do this podcast too is just connect. So if you guys want to watch games at the bar with the Pena, you should join the Pena. So either go and talk to Alex after the podcast or Alberto sitting at the back and just join, because it's cool to just have that experience and hang out with like-minded people. So see, Alex, you'll come back up here on this couch because we're doing trivia, and there's some Chicago Pena kind of podcast history trivia as well laced into it. So thanks, Alex. Round of applause for Alex. Thank you. All right, so I want to fill this couch up all night. So you guys come sit beside me. Don't be scared. This is going to be on video and audio form, but just let me know if you don't want to be on the video after. So we can do this in random order. So who would like to ask questions first, so we can kind of do a quick interactive Q&A style? I know there was hands up before the podcast, so all right, Rafi. Okay, come on up. Yes, come on up. Is that a Vinicius Junior jersey, right? Yeah.
This is a Vinny jersey. I recently, like from last 2 years, I was thinking I'd get one. This is the year. So close.
Yeah, you gotta hold it close. Yeah. So tell us about your experience becoming a Real Madrid fan. How did it all start?
It started in I think 2012, 2013 when we lost to Dortmund in the semi-final for UCL.
Heartbreaking,
yes. That was really heartbreaking. But that was the first year when I was transitioning from Manchester United to Real Madrid. And I was just...
That's a pretty good...
We forgive you. Yeah. So I saw this game, and so the first thing happened is Lewandowski scored, and then I don't remember the goalkeeper of the Dortmund. He did a mistake, and the commentator said, so Cristiano Ronaldo grabbed the ball, he scored the first goal. That was the only goal we scored in that time. So
that was the first leg,
right? On the first leg.
Yeah.
Yes. So something the commentator said, and that made me like, I'm going to follow this club. He said, Real Madrid and Cristiano Ronaldo, they punishes you. If you do a mistake like that, they punish you every time. And Benzema is keeping that legacy, punishing the goalkeeper. So from there on, I started following and then keep going in. Now I have I'm an official Madridista. I have the Real Madrid card and all that. And so I've been following from there on. Have been lucky to be part of Decima, the 11, 12, and 13. So yeah, it's amazing for me. It's an amazing journey, and I've been living here from last 7 years. They knew there is anything like this. My whole family thinks I'm crazy. They really think I'm crazy. So I have kids for every year. From last 5 years, I have all the kids Real Madrid get, and they're like, why you getting these? You don't know what it is. And then I got to hear about this, so now I'm coming tomorrow. I just told him that I'm coming tomorrow for Sevilla game. I watch the games at home, and any goal, I just go crazy, and they're like, kids are sleeping, and
Kids are sleeping.
But you want to throw around because somebody's like,
yeah. I just tell them, take them out, go somewhere else, go to some other house. I don't have any other place to go. So for
Your
me,
wife is welcome.
yeah.
And the kids.
So
Yeah.
my wife, she's also my wife, she's also. I got a shirt for her, a Madrid jersey, but and she's not in soccer. Otherwise, she would. But whenever she's like willing to watch, she watches. So she supports Real Madrid. She's a fan of Real Madrid, but she's not that much in soccer. Me, I'm in because of this guy right here.
Oh.
wow.
I just told him right there. You don't know Kian where I see you, because
I'm right here.
no, but this is the first time I'm meeting him. I've always seen him on the TVs. Read
It
his
was on Sky
tweets.
Sport the other day.
Yep.
You remember?
Yeah, and also I heard him asking Tuchel that question. That was really good question when he asked about moving Christensen out and getting the Reece James in. That locked Vinicius. But that's the point. That's my point. So
The purpose of this
People-
podcast is not to make me blush, by the way.
No.
Okay.
no, but I'm just trying to explain that watching a game is different than you see a team winning, you see a team losing. But when you go to Managing Madrid Twitter and you see Kian's tweet, the tidbits,
Analysis.
in the middle of the game, you realize why that went wrong, why that team lost in that moment.
That's so funny because my perspective is like, your perspective is that's analysis, and my perspective is just like talking shit on my phone. So it's like,
But that just, oh my, that's what went wrong. Oh, that's what went right. Because, see, that's what happened. So, that's how it is. So, that's how I am, a huge fan of him, a huge fan of Madrid. When it comes to question, I don't know how much technical questions are allowed, but
anything's allowed.
Just
Okay.
ask a
Anything.
fanboy question. You don't have to be technical. Just
I have this question. I was preparing from the day one when I registered for this. So we lost to Barcelona 0-4. I know playing Modric as a false nine did not work. Benzema was injured. What was the other solution? I know Jovic. I don't see Jovic to the position that he can be a. I know you've said this many times. I've read that too, but I don't see Jovic as a starter. Mariano could have been a better option. Why I say that is because of his physicality. He is very physical in front. But what would you do in that situation? The whole thing was, and I was trying to convince, why I asked this question, I was trying to convince my father to become a Madrid star, come watch it. And he watched the Barcelona. Yeah, he watched the Barcelona game, so all over the place. So what would you do? What would you say? What we could have done?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, and I think a lot of us had come up with like ideas because before the game we weren't sure if Benzema was necessarily going to start or not, and I think like rightfully so, a lot of us felt this is a Clásico, but it's not the most important Clásico of all time. Mathematically speaking, even I think we kind of it's so funny, by the way, how narratives quickly change. Like after the Clásico, and then all of a sudden Barcelona literally lose what seemed like a game in Germany in their own home. Not only like, and I got frustrated about this. I don't know if you guys listened to the Churros podcast yesterday. I know you were talking about like part of my frustration with that, by the way, was like now all of a sudden Xavi had his excuse. All the players had their excuse. Well, it's because all these Frankfurt fans. They got. I was
get the tickets.
Yeah, I mean exactly. It was Barca fans literally selling their own tickets because they were like, it's.
right after a game, they barely beat the next game. They had
The Levante.
they had few games that they couldn't win. The refs kind of helped a lot, but they were like late minute wins, and people like don't see those games.
Yeah, the Levante game was another one where
the Levante was like they should have lose that one like 100%.
So and to me, I was part of the reason I was annoyed was because I thought Frankfurt played really well, and I was like really impressed with the way they played. I was their counterattack. I love watching Kostic play.
Manscaped.
Yeah, he was amazing. So, anyways, all of a sudden it became about that. That's a deviation, but. Just how quickly it shifts, and we had a whole discussion yesterday about like how much do Clásicos matter? It matters for like bragging rights for a few days.
To them, it didn't matter to us pretty much.
I mean, let's be fair. If we won 4-0, we would have been going
Yeah.
crazy
I
too.
would have gone crazy on Facebook.
Like, So I kind of get the bragging at that, but our rebuttal and our banter will be like, well, you guys can have your Classical trophies, we'll have the trophies. You know what I mean? Anyways, so what was your question?
So
Benzema.
What could have you done?
What could have we done differently? And I think anything but that. I know it's kind of maybe not the most analytical answer, but Modric is a false nine. And actually, like if there's any like person who like you told them like play false nine for the first time in your life, I'd probably be like, okay, Modric is probably that human being because he can just do anything. He's so good.
Quite a lot.
Right. So, but like, certainly I think that wasted everyone, including his talents, because all of a sudden he's leading this press that's non-existent. And there were moments where it was like him and Kroos together pressing as like the two forwards. And Barca were just laughing at that and just carving through our press, which wasn't even really a press. It was incredibly disjointed, right? I think like in terms of theoretical fit from a positional standpoint, who would fill that Benzema role best at this stage is, and you're shaking your head maybe because you know who I'm going to say, but like if it was Jovic, I think it would have made sense if Jovic was playing regularly up until that point, because then you're like, okay, at least he has a little bit of momentum, he has some game rhythm or whatever. From a pure positional fit standpoint, and I don't think anyone in this room would get upset about it but I haven't spoken to anyone, but I think it's Bale because Bale literally played as a backup striker for Tottenham last season and scored a bunch of goals from that position.
And we played him at least in one game, the same position. You try to substitute Benzema with Bale. What was the game that he played?
Chelsea Stamford Bridge. He came on for a few minutes at the end. I don't know if that's the one you're speaking
about. There was one game. He started.
Oh, earlier this season. Villarreal maybe.
Benzema was injured. We played Bale as a forward, which means that Carlo probably sees only him as a forward instead of him. Yeah. So that game proved that Benzema is like literally irreplaceable in his role.
Well, that's the thing. Like we can come up with all these solutions, literally. And the other thing you lose with Benzema is not just the incredible technical ability; it's the leadership. The ability to organize, leading the line, and the defensive structure of the team, which is chaotic anyway. But Benzema actually fixes a lot of that on his own, just because he's an incredibly intelligent footballer and leader. But if you look at Bale too, at this stage of his career, long gone are his flying 40-yard runs, shoots from 40 yards, and even just like some of the underrated things he was good at prior in his career was his defensive ability. Flying in for slide tackles, covering for Carvajal at his peak. I remember vivid memories of Clásicos when, like there was that period of time. It seems so long ago, but Bale would come in and score a disallowed goal against Barcelona like every game in the Camp Nou, and it was like almost the most bullshit disallowed goal. It was like him just being stronger than Alba. Yeah. He would like get punished for that. But I remember in those same games he was scoring those disallowed goals, he was working hard defensively. So that's at his peak, he was that kind of player. And long gone are those aspects of his game. But right now what he has is, and you saw it with the Wales game in the qualifier, was give him a moment in front of goal and he's going to do something.
He's just not given a chance, I think. I think he's still good.
There's also a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. Yeah. I'm sure that it's not just about the football that he's not playing. But to answer your question, I think that probably would have been, if it wasn't Jovic, Bale would have been the best option, in my opinion. Yeah. But I can kind of understand why that wasn't the case. So, yeah. It makes sense.
All right. That's from me.
Okay.
Thank you, man. I have more, but
we'll bring you back. We'll bring you back. Yeah.
Thank you.
I actually did want to, because he brought up some interesting points about, his wife thinking you're crazy. Wife?
Yeah. No, it's not just
I was just kind of looking at the partners in this room, the wives and the girlfriends, and seeing what they're. Is that like a universal problem? I mean, you look like you're a Madridista from day one, so I don't know if that applies to you, but.
I could.
Please come up. Yes. Okay.
Right.
First, introduce yourself and tell us your Madridista story.
All right. So my name is Monica, and I am actually the wifey's the VP's wifey. So that's what they all call me.
Peña Madridista, right?
Yes, of course. I'm wearing a shirt. So I have been a soccer fan my entire life. I obviously I'm Polish, so I obviously would always watch the Poland soccer games. And then, of course, I married my husband, and I realized how much of a fan he was. And I just have to say that it's been a really fun experience to see him so excited and to be a part of the excitement. You had mentioned that there is just such a diverse friendship that you grow when you become a Madridista. I mean, we have fans from Poland, from Peru, from India, from America, and it's just I always call it the UN of nations when we come to a game, because there's people from all across the country and the world that have one goal in common, and that's to be a Madrid fan. And as a wife, I know the stress that goes into planning for some of those games. We always get up extremely early. There's a lot of planning, making sure all of our flags are put together, and I actually helped design that flag. I love seeing, again, a lot of the friends, the wives, the girlfriends, the spouses come, because I think there's always usually one person in the group that's more crazy than the other, but it's just a nice little outlet for all of the spouses, like I said, or friends, just to come and realize what a crazy group of just real heartfelt fans that we have. And we've become friends with Madridistas in Miami, Houston, DC, New York, San Francisco area, California area. So they're watching. Hi.
They are.
So you can say hi to your mom. You can say hi, like anyone.
Yeah, my mom knows. No, my mom does know that any kind of family dinners or lunches are planned around any kind of soccer games. So she usually checks the schedule before she plans anything.
That's great.
So it's just I think a really great camaraderie, and I'm really happy to be a part of the Peña, and just a growing Madrid fan, and Gato is obviously my favorite, Benzema. And then so I just wanted to, I just wanted to put a face to the, that obviously it's, there's obviously a lot of men out there that are fans, but we, especially the Peña Madridista Chicago, AJ Hudson's, women, everybody, kids, we're friendly too.
So thank you for sharing. I also wanted to tell you my story with my wife too, and I think I'm saying this because I think it's a good way to actually convince your wife that you're not crazy. So because my wife thought I was crazy, and she still thinks I'm kind of crazy, but not as much as she used to. And we booked a trip to Madrid. It was, my parents don't think I'm crazy because I'm Madridista because of them, so that's fine.
Your dad's Madridista.
My dad's Madridista, yeah. So. My sister, my wife, my parents, we planned a trip to Madrid. Just a vacay. It wasn't even like a soccer-related trip. And then it was 2014. And by some miracle, Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid made the final, and we were there for La Décima. By some miracle. This was before I was a journalist, too. 2014. So by the end of the night, just think of the emotional roller coaster of, obviously, you guys know, the Ramos header is probably the greatest moment of our entire lives. So I was gonna actually say something about it, but so she experienced that with us, the crazy roller coaster of emotions, and then we went to Cibeles at 5 a.m. We literally stood there the team bus was later than normal, even for a Cibeles trip, because they had to fly back from Lisbon, obviously party in Lisbon, take their time, and then come to Madrid, and then get on the bus and come to see Bellas. It was 5 a.m. We stood there, and we were just, our legs had been destroyed. We were tired. We were hungry. And then the bus came, and she experienced it. And after that, she was like, I'm in. You don't have to explain anything anymore. I understand. So because the perspective before was, we were in a small Canadian town. Now all of a sudden you go to Madrid and you see like it's literally a religion for everybody. And after that, she was like researching all the players. She was like, I want to know more about, her favorite was Xabi Alonso and Casillas, because they were probably the two most handsome at that time. And so she was researching about them. So like Xabi Alonso, like what was his path? So that's the secret. They gotta experience it one time with you, and then after that, they're good to go.
I was gonna say, I think one of the pivotal moments when I realized that I kind of was becoming a little bit of a crazy fan was, it was that game, and I know this is probably gonna be a little bit of a sore spot, but was it Houston or was it New York where we lost like 0-7? It was
7-3 Jersey.
Yeah, was that the one? Okay, so I remember that game, and that was when.
And now we trashed them in the league.
Well, so Courtois I think had just started, and I loved Courtois since day one, and I will never forget. I'm sitting behind the goal line, and there's Madrid fans that are booing Courtois, and I get really upset, and I start yelling at everyone. Like I was like, I'm like, stop yelling! Like he is so much pressure on him, this, and I'm like yelling at these fans, and then now everyone is like a Courtois, like he's an incredible goalie, and it's like
he filled up the shoes of some guy.
True,
that was really beloved.
And I think that was sort of like a sore spot, but it's one of those things where it's sort of like you have to be in it to be in it, and it was one of those where it really kind of, I was like, okay, Courtois all the way, and now when he's doing all these really great moves, I'm like, hey, I was the one that was cheering him on when everyone was
Day one.
So
you were right. You proved everything wrong.
See, I should have put money on, not put money on the game, but put money on him. But no, I think he's obviously an excellent goalie. Obviously, yeah, like you said, had really big shoes to fill. But I think that was the moment where I realized, like you said, you were in the moment. You're at a match. You see all the fans, and then we too went to Spain, and that was obviously an experience that you can never, say it, in words. But the bus is crazy. The bus ride is awesome, and just kind of being in the moment. And so it's really fun to experience it with my husband, but just kind of be able to live it myself now. So
thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. Do any other partners of mine want to share their experience?
Go, baby, go. This is like a completely inexperienced soccer fan. She's American. And she just recently kind of started watching the games, and she goes with me to AJ Hudson's pretty much ever since she goes. I don't know. You tell me, babe, how do you feel?
I'm not into the whole soccer world yet, but all I can say that is if I make some chicken tenders, pour him a couple Guinnesses, some Spanish olives, and just watch and observe, he's in his happy place.
Nice.
Now,
you had me at Spanish olives.
Yes. I might get scared shitless from some screaming sometimes.
Oh, she basically plans her entire life around the game.
You guys want to come up?
No, go.
No pressure.
You go.
Go by yourself. I'll go. We'll have a little bit longer talk. Go by yourself. Go.
She's coming. Okay. Round of applause. Okay, so elaborate more on your. Would you say you're Madridista now? Are you at that point? This may or may not work.
Close.
I am. I'm getting there. I'm learning to call soccer football as an American. No, but my point is, if he loves it, I love it, and that's love. Anything watching what he loves.
That was beautiful.
Something that he's passionate about, and I do get pretty involved when the games are on. And
what's your favorite player?
Benzema.
There you go.
And
fan favorite.
And we do have Easter tomorrow, but we're planning it specifically around the game.
It's gonna be a riot at the game.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Okay.
We gotta plan it around the game. We plan all our activities around the game. I mean, she does. Honestly, she plans it more than I do. Like, oh, you gave this on Saturday. I'm like, okay, all right.
He's a super fan, and he's super fun to watching the game.
Love that.
So.
That's just as entertaining as the game itself, right? Yeah.
If not more. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, let's. I guess we can keep the questions rolling. Yeah, come on up. Round of applause for Rob.
Yeah,
that's right. Welcome to the show, Rob. Tell us
Thank
about
you
your Monedista experience.
Sure. Yeah. Into the mic.
Yeah, it may or may not work, but just
okay.
Yeah,
hey,
it's working.
Hey, everyone. So I was talking to people before the show, and I'm quickly realizing that my Madridista experience dates me. So I became a Madrid fan in 98, 99.
Ooh, nice.
I was in high school. So
you have to be like 2 years old then, right?
Yeah.
You were in high school in 1998?
Yeah, I graduated in 2002. Yeah, so freshman year.
Woo.
Yeah.
Man, you aged well, man.
And my father was in the military, so we traveled a bunch, and one of the stops was in Belgium, which will lead into a follow-up question, if I have time for a second question.
Sure, man.
And I went to an international school. I played for the town's club team, and then I also played for the schools, and you played other international schools. Every now and then you would play other American schools across Europe. And I loved our team because it was, most of the kids, their parents were there for NATO, and so they're from all over the world. The contingent that I became really good friends with was from Spain. So it was kind of obviously there's the Barca fans and there's the Real Madrid fans. And growing up, Raul was my favorite player.
Yeah.
Because I was a little bit of a late bloomer soccer-wise, technically and stuff. And so I couldn't do all the fancy tricks and stuff. But I was if I could side foot pass it and far post.
You just gotta learn the Raul chip.
Exactly. I was the finesse king, and I was that guy plays like me, so that's my favorite player. So I picked the Madrid side, and I was there at that high school, and big Madrid fan and all that, and it also led to probably the turning point, but also sounds pretty obvious, my favorite moment as a Madrid fan, it was the Zidane volley versus Leverkusen. And that kind of that sealed it for me. And in fact,
you're that old.
I'm that old. Yes, yeah. And I definitely remember because we had our tournament. We were in Holland, or Netherlands. Sorry, we were in Netherlands, and we won our tournament. But I missed the game, so I didn't see it live. And people were telling me what happened, and I didn't believe it. And then we finally caught the replay and the highlights, and I was that's really awesome. Absolutely unreal. Absolutely.
That Zidane goal, I just was in shock because I was I was a kid watching it with my dad, and I was mind blown. I was 13 years old, and I was I didn't know this was possible that a human could do this, and the ball from the sky was worth every penny. Oh my God, he was at that point, especially when you're a kid watching, you're this guy is God. It was incredible.
And it was great. I chose the right team to follow because, for better or for worse, the other teams I followed, other sports, have not been so fortunate. So Madrid also, they bring some joy into my life.
Who are the other sports?
Good stuff.
I am now converted Chicagoan, so I follow the Bulls.
Yeah.
Which is great now. This season has been great, but if you've been following the Bulls for the last 10 years, it's been tough.
He's from Toronto, by the way.
Is there going to be any Bulls playoff games while I'm here?
Tomorrow night.
Oh my God.
No.
They're in Milwaukee.
But yeah, not till next Friday.
It's not far.
Okay, your question. What did you think of Debo? DeMar DeRozan. Yeah.
My favorite, we can talk basketball too. But have you guys seen the picture of the guy?
He's a huge basketball fan.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. All right.
We Raptors, Sixers.
Manning Madrid afters. Manning Madrid afters.
After party, we'll go watch the Raptors playoff game. Yeah. No one was interested in that. It was
no, dude, they're a fun team for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a basketball nerd too, but soccer through and through. It's the first one, and then basketball's close second.
Sounds right.
my question for you is, and I heard you talk about it actually, I think a couple of weeks ago, but I was wondering if you wanted to go a little more in depth. I generally feel like this season we are playing with house money. When I talk to my friends that, most of my friends, we're in the United States, so most of them follow the Premier League, and so they ask me like, "What do you think about Madrid?" Da, 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 da. And I'm like, "Look, we are in like transition still. There was a lot of holding on, saving money. We worked our way through the pandemic like incredibly responsibly and incredibly well.
Exactly. I'm really surprised you noticed that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people noticed this.
Yeah. And I think because of it, we are in a great position where this upcoming summer and maybe even the summer after that, like we're going to make major moves. And with that in mind, is the fact that we're like queued up to win the league and we're in the Champions League semifinals. I'm like, look, it's house money. Whatever happens after this. I'm very happy as a fan. I think we are very well set up going forward, except for right back. That position scares me. And especially with the news about, I'm going to butcher his name. Apologies in advance. Is it Nasser Mazraoui?
Mazraoui, yeah.
Mazraoui, with him not going to Madrid. Carvajal, who, man, he holds a place near and dear in my heart, but like that, he has had a hard 30 years, and it's showing.
I think the injuries have taken a toll.
It's taken a big toll on him, and like I'll never slag him off. Because there was a point where I legit think he was the best right back in the world. Like,
well, he was.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think we got to start planning for that elite backup. I know we signed someone from Shakhtar and we're integrating him into Castilla. Do you think that's the solution? Do you see another solution out there in the market or through the Cantera? I was interested on your thoughts there. Because to me, I feel like we have a solution or a potential solution queued up everywhere else through the 11, except there. And in the modern game, I feel like fullbacks are
very important.
Very, very important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a great question. I think we all probably have the same question, including myself, because it is a position that worries me quite a bit. I think if you told me, like, let's say in 2017 that we would have had Carvajal as a starter right back at the age of, how old is he now? 30. I'd be like, that sounds great to me.
Yeah.
30 is still in his peak. He's
not too old. Yeah.
Arguably the greatest right back in club history. I know it's arguable, but he's definitely like top 2 to 3.
There, yeah.
And I was like, 30 years old. That sounds great. And I think what's obviously something that no one had really predicted is that he would just get decimated by injuries.
Yeah.
And so when he's on the field, you can just see he doesn't have that extra gear. And I think I actually was proud of his performance against Chelsea in the second leg for the sheer fact that it was like the classic warrior side of Carvajal, where it's like his heart was like on the line. It was on the field. I mean, he's playing center back and, it was just a surreal situation to be in. But it's like those games that you remember. Like, remember that time where Real Madrid went into extra time against Chelsea and Carvajal was center back?
Yeah.
That was crazy. And like he literally went to war the whole time.
He played really good.
And it's like he's not going to be at his peak and he's not at the peak of his powers, but he put his heart on the line. So that should be said, like, he's a Madridista through and through. And we appreciate that even still now. And I was just looking at some numbers and he actually leads the Champions League in blocked shots. He has 24 blocks in the Champions League. No one has even come close. I think it's just like a sign maybe like he'll put his body on the line and he'll try. But I think the thing what we remember of Carvajal in 16-17, for example, at his peak. And it's just like when you gave him the ball on the right in an attacking position, you could trust him to beat a player and get across and make space for himself, get across and now, if you give him the ball in that situation, he's not really going to, you can't really trust him to like cook someone and dribble past them and get something. And so, anyways, valid concern, valid question. I don't really know the answer, to be honest, because I don't know if there's like this huge pool of right backs available in the market. Mazraoui is someone I would definitely sign if he's available, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything official that I missed this morning.
Oh, no,
or
not
just
official. Just the reports about him going to Bayern.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there's never been. You would think the most easiest report to like even fabricate if you're the media is Real Madrid are going to sign Mazraoui. They need a right back, and he's a free agent. And there's not even been any fabricated reports about it, and that's like a sign probably they're not, for some reason, not interested. But I would definitely go and sign him. There's other names like Pedro Porro and stuff. Castilla doesn't really have a right back that jumps out on me. Sergio Santos is good, but again, I have no idea. Castilla products could go hit or miss. Sometimes people you don't expect would be good, like Reguilón, are amazing, and then people you expect are amazing, they just don't turn out at the professional level. So I don't know if there's anyone in Castilla, but I do think I'd be curious to take a poll from the audience at this point, actually. Let's say free agent Erling Haaland, who is like, even as a free agent, is the most expensive signing of all time. Got to pay Raiola, you got to pay his dad, his brother.
The village where he grew up.
Yeah, you got to pay like his high school friends, you got to like pay his barber probably. And like, so it's insanely expensive. Let's say you could splash however hundreds of millions of dollars on Haaland and have him in the squad. Or would you rather do that, or would you rather, let's say, like you take all that money and you put it towards
defense?
I would like to say Ashraf. I just assume that if you just gave like PSG a briefcase and they had $300 trillion, they'd be like, nah, we don't need that. So let's like, I actually think Ashraf in the future will be a Real Madrid player. That's I have no evidence of that. It's just a hunch. I think it'll happen. I think the PSG project is not infinite. It's gonna end at some point, and I also think Ashraf will push his way out, and I don't think he's gonna be happy there long term. Just a hunch. You can revisit this in 5 years and say I was wrong. I don't know. But another name that came up after these Chelsea games was Reece James.
Yeah, that's the guy.
So to me, Reece James is not realistic in the sense that why the hell would Chelsea sell him? Yeah. And they're only going to lose some players too. But I'm just putting it as a thought experiment. What if you took Haaland type money? Obviously not Haaland type money. You're not going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. But let's say if his market value is $60 million, and you put that towards whoever Chelsea's new owner is, and you sold Reece James on the project. I mean, would you rather have Haaland or Reece James at that point? I'm curious.
They might sell him.
So
are we raising hands?
So raise hands for Haaland in that situation.
I would get Haaland in any occasion because
one guy for Haaland is like
not for Haaland because you don't really need a defense after that. You really don't need it.
Okay, so hands up for Reece James.
Instead of Haaland?
Assuming
there's like 4 people in this room who are like, neither. We don't want either.
That's assuming that, I'm making the assumption that Mbappe is.
So for Reece James, one
right.
thing that I really admire is how he. Again, I am a huge fan of Vinicius, and at his level, how he locked him.
Reece James. Reece James defending Vinicius.
Even after the early yellow, too.
How he, told him back, locking a player who is, blazing past every right back. So,
yeah,
and he locked him.
He locked him enough that they didn't qualify.
Well, he locked him. He did great in that game, considering within 10 minutes he had a yellow card. He had to play 120 minus 10, 110 minutes with a yellow card against Vinny.
Yeah.
And there was one play. It wasn't against Vinny. Oh, the Benzema volley. Mm-hmm. When Benzema had that volley teed up on his left foot and Reece James came in and poked it, and I thought for sure it was a penalty, and they showed the replay, and he somehow had the pace and the recovery that he just poked that ball right from under on a yellow.
Reece James and you're done. That's it.
So that's part of the reason why I'm so impressed with Reece James is that, so often we talk about fullbacks. They're good at attacking or defending. It's rare that you have both. Mendy is great defensively, has done really not much at all, if anything, offensively. Marcelo, elite offensively, not so great defensively. Yeah. And the thing was, if I had to choose the most important trait for a fullback, I would lean on the side of offensive power. Because if you have, Marcelo was a supernova at his peak. And it's impossible to defend that as the guy who's, contributing to the attack along, making runs for Ronaldo and linking up with Benzema too, and Cruz on that side. Isco at his peak in 17. Like, that was just so hard to defend. So I would lean towards like offensive ability. But the cool thing about Reece James is that he has both.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know like I was talking to Lucas about this on Thursday, and I know some fans have mentioned this too. Like, for a lot of Real Madrid fans, Reece James, those were the only 2 games that they've seen of him. So they just assumed he was a defensive fullback. But if anything, he is just incredible offensively as well.
He can be a winger easily.
He is one of the best creative right backs in the offensive third. So the fact that you can put him to do both is, I mean, I'm not sure if it's a realistic scenario, but so now we're just jumping the gun. But
yeah, sure.
Yeah, so he really impressed me in that sense, and I think you can, the fact that you can put him and defend Vinicius Jr. And what happens if Tuchel doesn't make that adjustment at halftime against Chelsea? Like, would it have been over even sooner? Like, let's say if it was Christensen for 2 legs straight, I don't think it would have been. They would have given him a chance.
What about the goal that we conceded? Vinicius was completely open. If that happens to Carvajal, we literally shoot him down. Like, what the hell?
The goal that we conceded,
Vinicius. Assisting Benzema for the goal. Like, Vinicius was completely open. Nobody was around him. He literally even took a nap to see where Benzi is. And then, well,
I think the context of that is like it's like extra time, and it
was also it was a turnover.
But in this huge games, let's say I honestly rate Carvajal more than Reece, because I mean I've watched Carvajal since forever. He literally succeeded Salgado.
Well, you love Carvajal so much that
I love him. I took that because
I
know this guy capabilities, and I know that people watch him in training. We sometimes get surprised, why is this guy? Because that's what you do in training. The coach will see this guy's capabilities. This is the guy that I want in. And Carvajal is that guy that he will send in 2 crosses in 0, but then he'll give you 2 or 3 completely on Benzema's hat or something. I think that his injuries were the only reason why he's not the best right back.
I think that's the main factor. That's the main factor. Yeah.
So, and knowing that this guy is literally from his little kid, he's 5 years old, he's been in Real Madrid.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a position that I think concerns a lot of us. Yeah.
I think we'll gamble with Carvajal next.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Yeah, of course.
Round of applause for Rob. Appreciate it. How's everyone feeling? Do you need to stretch? You're feeling good? Feeling okay?
We're
Keep going? Okay. All right. So who wants to come next? I mean, you're obviously
I'll come.
Yeah, I know. At some point you're just gonna come. So I was like, if no one.
Let's get over.
Okay. So the context about this guy. So Slobodan, I might butcher your last name. Tchaikovsky? Okay. Slobodan Tchaikovsky. So I've known this guy since I was just a kid, but this is the first time I ever met him. The story is when you're a kid and you're the only guy in your neighborhood who cares about this stuff, you go online, right? So now we have Reddit, now we have Twitter. Back then we had forums. So there was a forum, it was called Extra Time. Does it still exist?
It does, yeah, but it's not as active
Okay.
at all.
So, and that's...
Big Soccer took over.
That's how I met this guy. And now I met virtually, right?
But how many? Tell them how many
that
years
was
ago.
2000... No, that was 19...
It's 25 years ago, pretty much.
1999, I think was...
I was 15 maybe. That's pretty much...
That's the time range we're talking about. So we kept in touch. He actually, I have a private Madridista Facebook group. And he's actually one of the mods in it. And now he this is, I don't know if it's still streaming, but this is a streaming on Talking Madrid.
Yep.
It has 200,000 Real Madrid fans inside of it. And so he does a lot of stuff as well.
Page,
yeah. And also he talks to my dad almost more than I do because they added each other on Facebook and then they talk and anytime
he likes my views a little bit.
Yeah, he always tells them I always agree with your Real Madrid takes. And I'm like, Dad, what about me? Don't forget about me. I have Real Madrid takes too. So yeah, welcome to George. It's just a pleasure to finally meet you in person. It was very special. Yeah.
I want to ask one question. Does your dad ever tell you, you should listen to this guy, what he's saying, come here, Kian? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes,
actually, honestly, 25 years probably, and we even talked a few times before on Skype, or before everything, before this tech came out. Me and him were talking, and I just told him before he came, he always kept his composure. He's pretty much a public figure at this point. Like, he showed up in Gold TV back in the days with Ray Hudson mentions his podcast. I mean, I was like, listen, this is the guy that I usually fought vigorously on forums.
Yeah, we actually disagreed a lot.
We disagreed a lot, and you were the one who was like politically correct all the time. And I'm like, why don't you just let go of your anger sometimes? Just say something. He was always keeping his composure. I'm the guy who would always go above and beyond.
That'll be the challenge for today. Someone make me angry. It's impossible.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's literally impossible to make this guy angry.
Unless Ancelotti do something stupid like tomorrow.
Yeah, or like after a 4-0 Clasico defeat, you'll catch me on that day.
I saw Kian. I can actually read his tweet, and I think Kian was angry.
You felt the anger of
Kian was all over. Kian was, what is Ancelotti doing? I can see that he was shouting on his tweets.
I think the way he channels his anger is through sarcasm, which is the most refined way of kind of channeling your anger, and that's like a really, really intelligent way to channel it. But we kind of like talk on and off, even like personally we text pretty much like whenever we can, and for me it's like from that time to where he is right now tells me that she knows I'm extremely passionate, and he knows too. I'm a guy who can even lose his cool at times, but he might be even more passionate than me because he pursued this. People talk about it. They want to do stuff about it. They want to do stuff about, like Alex here, the Peña Madridista, but he's like taking it on a different level. I know how hard it is for him to do whatever he's doing. He has like 2 beautiful children. One is named on his favorite, which is part of my question, Luka Modric. His son's name is Luka. And we're just talking how hard it is to be on the road, constantly trying to make. And for him, I think it's more of the thing that he said when he was a kid. He wanted somebody around him to cheer together with him. I had Vlade. Do you remember that guy? Vlade and the forum. He's a Barca fan. He's one of my best friends. Yeah. You remember that guy? He's like one of the classiest people in the Barca forum. Uh-huh. And I had that guy. I had like a few other guys that I could get together and just talk about the game. And even right now, what I'm doing, I'm trying to get my page going. I'm modding a few pages. I really don't get as dedicated as you. But I think the thing that drives you is you want to have that community that you can have fun with and nothing else.
So if you don't have them, just birth them and then brainwash
them. Exactly.
Hey, no.
One of the 2 questions is, the first question is going to be not too complicated, but me and you both pretty much have the same favorite player from what I know, Raul Gonzalez, to kind of the guy that dragged us in Real Madrid. I was Real Madrid fan since like I started peeking into the team 1991. But my question is, you said the other day with Diego when you talked, I always have a favorite player in the generation, which was Raul, and it was Luka Modric, and then now it's Camavinga. It's one of your favorite players that you look forward, you love that guy. Do you think that anybody in your life will substitute the importance of Raul Gonzalez? And do you think that somebody will, even right now looking at Benzema, the things that he does, we all love our boy Raul. I mean, I would always fight tooth and nail. Nobody will be bigger than him. But I'm also a huge Benzema fan. To a point where my name on the forum was Karim Benzema, and I was the only one that had that name. And it was a silly because I was a kid. People would like, why didn't you put your own name? Why did you put that's like so dumb. It was not in to have a Name of a player. Name of a player is your name. It was one other guy, Figo is God. He's also from Canada. You remember that guy?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, do you think that anybody will take that place in your heart from Raul?
From Raul? No. So, I've come to terms with the reality that Benzema has passed Raul, which was unthinkable for me. And, you know, a lot of players have passed Raul from a pure performance standpoint over the course of their careers. And, you know, I remember when we first signed Cristiano Ronaldo, we were all very excited. But if you had told me then that Ronaldo would shatter Raul's records in like half the time, I mean, that would have been impossible to me. Because like Raul, when he was leading the Champions League goal scoring all time, I didn't think anyone would even pass him in my lifetime. I really didn't. But now it turns out that number was actually child's play. And like now we have better athletes and just freaks, superstars who are just putting those numbers to shame. And I think part of that is because Raul, after 2003, declined. If he had continued his pace after 2003, he would have still been hard to beat. But from a pure emotional standpoint, no one will top Raul for me because he was part of the reason why I think
same here.
I became as hardcore of a Madridista as I am now. And you know, you think about like back then. Again, like when you're a kid, everything is more dramatic, right? Everything is more emotional. So for me, it was like I couldn't even buy posters of Raul at that time. So I would like print out on my stupid shitty ink printer, and I remember I literally printed the Raul poster off my printer, and my dad was like, did our ink go? And it's like just like every single pixel on this giant thing.
Not even the picture. I would print the name. Because you couldn't print the picture, the photo. You could not find a photo. So you can only paint the name, Raul, and you hang in like, who the hell is this guy?
You guys remember like Microsoft Word had that like banner thing? And with like board art.
Yep,
so I would take each letter would be a whole piece of paper, R, A, and then my whole like room. Anyway, so like that's all I had. I didn't have any posters, but he was a god to me. Like. Every time, you know, I was the guy now. Like, I don't know if you guys use Twitter. Do you guys use Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's a terrible place. But one thing you'll see with Twitter is that you'll see a lot of fanboys, right? Like a lot of like people with the player's avatar and their Twitter profile name is like X-player season. Or like with Barca, it's always like Cruyffista, Cruyffology.
That's how we used to. That's how we used to.
That's how when we were kids. That's what we had, but it wasn't Twitter. And so that was me. I was the angry, the ones who drive me nuts now. I was that when I was a kid, just tweeting, like not tweeting, but like just posting shit.
Driving somebody else.
Raul agenda, like defending him to the death, even though you know I clearly was not in the right on a lot of those arguments. So I don't think anyone will take Raul's place for me. From an emotional standpoint, I
thought so.
Yeah,
and
one big applause for Raul. One of the older generations remember this. But the other question is, I became fan like 1991 and 1992. I was like 11 or 12, and I was. You know, people always tell me like. Oh, you're cheering for Real Madrid. That's easy. That's the most, you know, prolific team, and they can win any title. It's easy to be a fan. But when I was becoming a fan of Real Madrid, Real Madrid was like literally like struggling the most. 1991, 1992.
Wow.
It was like I was like 10, and I remember I was a Red Star fan, and I was telling you before you came in. There was this guy that played for my team that time. His name was Robert Prsinečki. He was a Croatian guy, president of Red Star right now. From all the players in that team, there's like a lot of insane players from that team. Savicevic went to Milan. Pixie went to Japan. And Prsinečki, for some reason, got bought by Real Madrid, 1991. And I'm like, I couldn't follow games. There was like one channel.
Yeah.
Only one channel. If you're lucky to watch your team, that's like incredible once a month. And I would read read about what this guy is doing. It's like, there's like things, and you first have to like pray that the newspaper you're getting has something about your team, let alone about your player, And then, I started catching up games. One other game, like very, very few and far between. And the forum was the only outlet we could talk about this kind of stuff. And then he moved to Barcelona in 1995. Like, literally, my favorite player till this moment, one of my favorite players, Robert Prosinecki. He was like number 5, two-way player. Back in the days, there was no two-way players. Like Yaya Touré, like, Xabi Alonso. Like, they were not existent back in the days. It was either defensive midfielder or offensive. You just, you couldn't. But he was both. He was like box to box pretty much.
I mean, his problem was mostly injuries, right?
He had a lot of injuries. Yeah, he had a lot of injuries. And funny enough, he started having those injuries after he moved from Red Star. In Red Star, he was like literally never injured.
Classic Real Madrid problem. They're all healthy before until we sign them.
Yeah. And so my question related to that is, we know the Lorenzo Sanz, if you remember that era. And honestly, a lot of people don't like this guy. I personally like him. I think he did some really, really good moves. Including, I don't know if you remember, but in that time it was like talks about Zidane. I don't know if you know the entire saga about how Zidane was brought to Real Madrid. Yeah. There was like Zidane, Patrick Vieira, Seedorf was literally sold to make space for him. And we had Zé Roberto, Seedorf. Like that team, that time, 1996, if you look at it, the players we sold that time, the success that they had after we sold them, and this is our biggest, problem. We sell a player and he's like the biggest player in the history. Like Seedorf, literally we sold him and after that he became legend.
Yeah.
And we had Zidane, even from Lorenzo Sanz era, to bring him to Real Madrid. My question is, the financial and everything, how big do you think Perez is for this team? He mentioned, which is something that a lot of people don't really talk about. In the past 2 years, our team was the only team in the entire world net positive on paper. The only team that didn't lose money in this past 2 years. While remodeling a stadium, $500 million is going to bring us $175 million a year moving on when it's open. While at the same time, Barcelona has a $1 billion debt and they have to remodel their stadium. How big is Florentino Perez for this team? And does he even deserve to surpass Santiago Bernabeu, to renaming the stadium in his name?
Spicy. Okay, so I think you answered a lot of the questions yourself in terms of, you listed up all the great things Florentino Perez did. I mean, it's interesting, Lorenzo Sanz, that was his biggest weakness, was that he actually, in a lot of ways, that summer of 96, 97 was massive in terms, like, it was Seedorf, Roberto Carlos, Roberto who didn't do much, Sucre, Panucci. That was a big summer for us.
Huge.
And Peja, yeah.
That's when I actually started really gripping in on Real Madrid.
Peja?
Yeah. Peja Stojkovic, he's from my he's from my region. And
okay.
Sucre too, Croatians, both of them.
So, I mean, and then obviously we won the 7th with that team. So, but Sanz's weakness was he had no concept of the financial side of things. And part of the reason, like, the club was in so much debt when Florentino Perez took over, and that was huge. I mean, he was huge in turning that around, right? And I don't know if I need to add anything. Like you mentioned, during the pandemic, I can't imagine any other president navigating this the way he did. There's just not happening. It was incredible. And because, as we know, and everyone looks at Real Madrid as the evil club. It's funny. I actually think people don't look at us as evil anymore because there's more evil. There's like PSG, the cities, the Chelseas, etc. So like now, like I've never seen the world band behind Real Madrid to the extent that I saw it against PSG this season. It's like we got to take these guys down. I don't care if it's Real Madrid or anyone else. Like we got to take PSG down. So. And then obviously just a side tangent, but the meltdown of Nasser after the Bernabeu was just it was so beautiful.
Salty tears.
Yeah. So I in terms of like changing the stadium's name, no, I think I wouldn't. I mean, it's really special that it's called Santiago Bernabeu. If you haven't had a chance to already, just do a deep dive on Santiago Bernabeu yesterday. He's just an unbelievable.
He was huge, yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, like you can say, if you want, you can say Florentino is the best president in Real Madrid history. But I think what you can also say is that Santiago Bernabeu yesterday was the most important. Because there's a good chance that Real Madrid wouldn't exist today because of him. Because, there was a civil war, and he comes back, and Real Madrid just didn't exist at that point. He has to piece it together. He didn't find some of the players who were there before the war. He just never found them. And then he had to piece together, find some of the players who were there, sign new players. And then we're talking about like the vision of Florentino that he has, signing the Galacticos, bringing in the Zidanes and the Figos, obviously taking it too far, but then coming back in this second regime, bringing Ronaldo, etc. All those guys, Benzema, who now has just been lights out. Santiago Bernabeu was like that of his time. Di Stefano, Puskás, being visionary to sign all these superstars when no other club. I mean, the story of Puskás.
Galacticos is that time.
It was the Galacticos at that time. The story of signing Puskás is, I don't know if how many of you guys are familiar with the way we signed Puskás, but like he shows up to the training ground at Valdebebas, which I don't know if it was actually Valdebebas at the time, but the training ground, and he's at that point, he's 31 years old, he's fat, and he hadn't played football in 2 years. And no team in the world was taking a gamble on this guy. Imagine the outrage on Twitter now if Florentino Perez is like, okay, this fat dude who hasn't played football in 2 years, we're going to sign this guy. And Bernabeu is talking to him at the training ground. He's like, we want to sign you. And in Puskás' memoir, he actually says this verbatim. He said, I looked at Santiago Bernabeu. I was like, I couldn't even speak Spanish, but I was like, dude, look at me. I'm 31 and I'm overweight. Why would you want to sign me? And Bernabeu, like a badass, he has a briefcase full of money and he gives it to Puskás. And then Puskás, at the age of 31, goes on to break records and just score. I mean, just smashing records as a fat 31-year-old is unbelievable. And so Bernabeu had the vision to be like, this guy is going to be good. And I think like I've written about this before too, because remember what was that company that was going to buy the rights to the Bernabeu? Epic, I think it was. It was a construction company or something. This was a story like 2-3 years ago. Yeah, IPIC. Yeah, I say Epic. I've never even said that out loud before. But and my heart sank because like the idea of even changing the stadium would really be devastating for those.
Do you know
reasons.
why that happened though?
Of the
name change? Is because Atletico Madrid has Wanda International, which is one of the biggest construction company. Yeah. Listen to this. We have 2 buildings in Chicago. One is the Vista Tower, the new tower that was just built, and one is the Aqua Tower. They were both built by the same company, Wanda International. They're the biggest construction conglomerate. So these other guys wanted to match them, but I mean that would never happen to Real Madrid, pretty much. So they are extremely rich company from China that build big stuff. So literally they built Atletico Madrid for free to Atletico, just to name them like that. I think it's worth the price though, It's a beautiful stadium, not as good as the previous one.
They would have to keep Santiago Bernabeu in the name. They couldn't just rename it.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I know what all Florentino did, I'm seeing it from the day I admire every move he takes. It's like showing dust to every other.
Florentino?
Yeah, Florentino. But huge fan. I would still not do that. The name is. It just feels.
It's sacred.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's obviously also named after an incredibly important figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it is interesting. Just as a side note, that Florentino Perez himself owns one of the biggest construction companies in Spain and doesn't use any of that. Doesn't even use that for the Bernabeu because he supports other great companies. Also, could be a great PR
Which brings me to another question I have to ask.
Sure.
So another question is, this is like an interesting subject because eventually, you know how money moves everything in sports? And right now it moves pretty much everything in the United States. Like, You have leagues that you don't drop out, you know, and the thing is, it scares me, but this is where football is going towards, and it's kind of scary. And our president is kind of pushing that, the Super League. So the Super League, it's funny right now, but eventually we might have a league where we won't have to fight for relegation or anything, and that's when the money will be the only factor that drives football. And even though we now think it's inconceivable that our stadium will be renamed into something else, I can totally see it in the future happening.
It will happen one
day. It will happen because somebody shows up with like $1 billion for you to change your name. You will change it. And I'm pretty sure we will. And my question is, and I know that you're going to get untangled in this one with your answer, because it's in a hindsight, it will be like, this was my view, but I don't know how it's going to be in future. What do you think of the Super League?
No, my answer has been pretty clear from day one. I think the idea of a Super League in theory is actually kind of cool, but the one that was presented was horrible. And I think it's a little bit frustrating too, because no one holds UEFA to this like high standard of like, wow, you guys are doing an amazing job. You're not corrupt at all, and you're a great tournament. And you know, no one really wants to take UEFA's side on this. But the way the Super League was presented, you know, it kind of, the PR was a disaster. So this is one thing about Florentino. As great as he is at so many things, one thing he just does not have down is he does not have a good PR team telling him what to do, what not to say. And like during that whole Super League fiasco, he went on Chiringuito, he went on multiple TV channels, and basically just said all the wrong things. And
but that's what you do. You tell people one thing, you back off, and then you reintroduce it. That's
well, they have. So to me, like the idea,
marketing scheme. That's what everybody does. You tell them straight into their face what it is, and then you back off. Also, they soften up to the idea.
Well, the problem is what it was presented. It was just a bad idea. And that's the thing. That's why it was hard to pitch, right? I think to me, and I've written about this. I think about this a lot. I've written over the years. I've actually written articles about my proposal, what it would be like. But if you're going to do a Super League, it has to be all inclusive. It has to include everybody. Everyone from even the third divisions of Wales. Exactly. Everyone has to be included. There has to be a relegation system. I think we can all agree that this current format is not 100% great, although it's great. You know, we enjoy it. But if you're going to have a Super League, it has to be a situation where you can be relegated from it, and any team has a shot at it. And the other thing is that it's really easy to do this in American sports because there's one league. You can't. It's so convoluted in football. There are so many people who have their hands in the pot.
No tradition.
There's no look. Even in Spain, forget Europe. Forget the fact that there's like a million leagues within Europe, and then there's UEFA, and then there's FIFA, but within Spain, there's a league and a federation, and there's always confusion about who's in charge of what. They're always fighting with each other. There's no unity, and so to be able to fix all of this, it's impossible. You have to almost tear it all down and build it from scratch, which is like, so to me, like the solution is very difficult to come up with. But I don't think the plan that was presented was good. I think a Super League in theory works, but this one was a disaster. I would get really cool and creative with it, I think. What I would actually argue is that, and this is really hard to do, but I think you could actually do a Super League where, because a lot of the argument is, well, if you do Super League, you won't have these cool games in the leagues, like, you know, West Brom versus Manchester United. Well, what a treat it must be for those guys to welcome Manchester United at the stadium. Or like with Real Madrid, if maybe it might be Elche, you know, those fans coming out to see Real Madrid. But I also think it would be cool if you even had situations where it's like Cardiff gets to host Real Madrid for a game like that. And I think it would be really cool to actually expand it to all of Europe. And if we were to include everyone, we would.
What about the United States? Because that's what they were planning to do.
I mean, that's probably pushing it. Yeah, from a geographical standpoint.
Is it pushing it when the what's it called, the friendly match in Miami between Real Madrid and Barcelona? The cheapest ticket in the furthest spot was $460. The most expensive was $15,000. So when a team looks at this, and when you go to Madrid, for example, you get a ticket, the front seat, $300-400, and then $50-60 all the way to the end. do you not think that Real Madrid would not want to have like a league game, Clásico in Miami, where 15,000 will be the most expensive, and people will pay. That's the thing. People will pay for that, and I think this is what's going to happen. I mean, when they didn't. I think when you look in the past,
I misunderstood your question. I thought you meant like to include like Chicago Fire in the Super League. Yeah.
Well, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The only thing I think is, let's say.
Which, by the way, a lot of people are angry about that idea.
A few years ago, they came up with this plan to do this tournament. Remember, it just started recently. The tournament in the United States, it just literally started.
Yeah.
Why do you think that started? That was literally just they wanted to test it out, how it's gonna work, and it worked insanely good. He mentioned it. The biggest game in United States ever attendance was a friendly match between Man United and Real Madrid. You know how much the tickets were for that game? It was like $10,000 to get a front seat.
Crazy.
So you think they don't want to get this money?
No, I think that's inevitable. There's another Clásico happening in this summer. I don't know if you guys know. It's in California, right?
Vegas. Yeah.
Oh. Like, how can you not want to go to that?
And they are building Real Madrid Stadium right now for NFL matches, for tennis. So they're going to try. I think it might be actually a good thing to kind of universally make the sport universal. And it's going to lose a lot of the culture backing. But
it's a double-edged sword to me because on one hand, a lot of people who live here who may not get to see Real Madrid play. Although, look, I would argue if you have $10,000 spent on a ticket, you can go see Real Madrid play whenever you want. So I don't know if that's necessarily an argument, but I think it's just a cool experience to have here. I think it's a cool thing. If you want to make more money, go for it. But there's also the other side of the argument that I really hate is that, or I really have a problem with this specific thing is that I really believe that there's too much football. There's too much football, and no one is even taking into account the state of the players. None of the players want to play as...
The other sports also. You cannot watch any other sport. If you're a soccer fan, you don't really have time for any other sport.
Well, it's just like, there's no like players union that could like stand up and be like Ruiz has been very vocal about this. Like, we play too many games. Everyone feels this way. And I feel, as a fan, okay, whatever, but even as a journalist, I feel like this, like, there's always games. Like, there's no off season. There's no time to take a break. It's just, there's constantly just stuff happening. And so I would like to just somehow decondense the schedule or come up with some kind of solution, right? This exists in the NBA too. It's like a lot of players, like, can we reduce it from 82 to 72? Yeah. Like, half the games, like, no one even cares about. The players don't even try until the playoffs start. Maybe you have to charge more in like 72 games if it's not 82 games. So you have to come up with something, but there's just too much football, and that's the other side of it. It's like somehow we need to reduce the calendar.
Meanwhile, in the NBA, they're talking about the players want to reduce the games.
Yeah.
The league's talking about introducing a cup.
In
the middle of the season.
Yeah. I mean, look at the play-ins now. But the thing is that the play-in has been wildly successful. And it's been so fun to watch. Like these one-off do-or-die games. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I remember the Warriors-Lakers last season was incredible. And
there's people thinking about this stuff behind the back door, man. They just try to figure out the most they can squeeze out of people. And I think that's kind of like, honestly, that's the kind of capitalistic way of thinking, and it's creeping in Europe where capitalism is capped mostly at bay, but the money are just way too good, and they're gonna ruin. I would say, I'm lucky that I got to the point where I watched most of my childhood. I watched like real football, but I'm afraid in future it's gonna be superstars. It's gonna be just 10, 15 teams, and that will be it. And these small teams in like third league in England, they'll be like, we're not allowed to play with the big guys. We're not,
Let's see where it goes. I think once we start talking about capitalism, it's...
I see it. Well, it's part of it.
I know. So, how is everyone doing? Okay, I need to always make sure I'm engaging and reading the room properly. So, I know that there's at least a couple more who want to ask questions. So let's just put your hand up. Tim, What's up? Come on up, Brent. Come on up. Applause for Tim.
Thanks for having me.
So Tim, tell us. I always forget to ask this question too. Also, how did you hear about the podcast and stuff? Like, just tell us about your experience.
So I heard about the podcast. I think I read some articles by you and Matt. Also Twitter as well. But I don't know. I guess I have a different journey to be a Real Madrid fan than everyone else. So I'm a teacher, and I spent spring break in London, and that's where I met my wife.
Nice.
I've been like a traditional American sports fan, and I only like baseball and football, and didn't really like watching soccer. And I met my wife 4 years ago, and it just gave me like a reason to back a European team. And I really, after backing like a European team and like backing like Real Madrid, it just became easy and natural, and I've really jumped right into it. But yeah, so like when I go to Madrid now, I've been to the Bernabeu. I like enjoy watching the games in Madrid with my wife's dad.
Nice.
And honestly, though, I think I've become even like a bigger fan than a lot of my wife's friends.
Surpassed. Nice.
Like we'll be hanging out in Madrid, and everyone's like goes out and about, and we're always not in the home, like at a bar getting tapas, and it'll be game time, and I'm like, okay, who's turning the game on? And I'm ready to go. But yeah, I just really enjoyed it. And then obviously I'm not like super into tactics right now. Like Ohm loses me a lot of the times on the podcast. But
it's Ohm's tactical jargon.
Yeah, I mean, like
throws it in there.
I do my best to follow up with him, but
it's the deep end.
Yeah, but
I think Jan simplifies Ohm's I read Ohm, but it's too difficult to grasp. So then I read his, and I understand. Oh, Jan basically simplifies it.
Let me send this message to Ohm.
No, I love Ohm too. I just sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't understand what he's saying. But
that's great, man. That's cool. Awesome. So
sorry, I wanted to. So I met my wife 4 years ago. So I thought it was kind of unique that I became a Real Madrid fan
after
in the summer of like when Ronaldo left.
Yeah. That's interesting.
It's been like a weird time to join. Ronaldo left, and like I didn't really. I believed like all of like the Marca articles. Like I didn't understand like most of the.
That's
super
like,
the media stuff's like garbage.
You might be the first person I've met who became a fan after Ronaldo left.
Yeah. And like following like American sports, like I'm a Cubs fan, and I'm like, okay, like if we come in like third place, fourth place, and we make the playoffs, it's like a good thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't like realize that like being a Real Madrid fan, like third place is like garbage. And, we got like 68 points or something, and
sacking starts. At third place, sacking starts.
Managers get fired.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought Solari was doing.
Well, who was the baseball equivalent? With the Yankees, right? I mean, I don't know anything about baseball, but
Yankees.
I guess they would have similar standards. I don't know.
World Series, I guess. But yeah. I mean, obviously, I know that now, and I'm learning.
You've learned.
But yeah. I think like Ronaldo leaving, and then like we signed Jovic, and scoring like a bunch of goals in Bundesliga. I was like, oh, like this guy's probably the answer.
Seems pretty good.
Yeah. Kian doubted him that he's going to score the most goals, Pichichi. I remember that podcast.
I had massive hopes for Jovic. I was really impressed with him at Frankfurt.
He never really got a huge chance, though, and that's for Real Madrid.
He never got the rhythm and continuity. Yeah. I mean, you could argue he should have done more in those minutes from a goal-scoring perspective, but the annoying thing with that was he was just really unlucky too. Like he was playing well, hitting the crossbar, scoring offside goals, setting people up.
10 million per year. It's a public secret.
That's standards
how much he was paid. He was paid as much as Ramos, pretty much, at the last year.
One thing I feel, and again, this is just me reading some of the stuff. Playing as a center forward or a striker in Real Madrid is not just you should be good. You should have that aspect of understanding your team and reading them before they do. Before you move, they should be reading you. You should be reading them. I think Jovic lacks that. He's a good striker.
He's a classic forward. He's not a playmaker forward.
Yeah, but like take an example of Benzema. Take an example of Cristiano. They would function and the team would function with them. They know where Ronaldo will be. The team would know where Benzema will be. Benzema will know where my team will move. I think Jovic was lacking that.
So that particular thing you just mentioned is, and who knows if he would have played every game, maybe he eventually would have figured that out. I don't know, but when you would watch Real Madrid when Jovic was on the field, you wouldn't notice Jovic.
Yeah. Correct, that's what I'm saying.
When Benzema's on the field, even if he's not touching the ball, you see his presence. You know he's there.
That's what I'm saying.
So he's like an old-fashioned. Jovic is more like an old-fashioned forward, classic forward, which that doesn't mean he's bad. He's just not in the right club. Forwards of Real Madrid is like Raul, Benzema, playmaker forward, which is like 10/9.
Similar kind of players.
It's a really difficult. How many people do you have like this?
Yeah, I think
Schmeichel said this interesting thing the other day. Like, how many people do you have that will run like a madman, like Benzema did?
Yeah. Very few.
And then score. Because usually forwards, if they run a lot, they don't have concentration to execute the strike. It's really hard. Yeah. You really have to keep even Ronaldo, as a player, he would keep his, he has times during the game when he gets the ball and shoots. Benzema is a completely different breed.
Yeah.
He can run 120 minutes, then get the ball and still execute. That's extremely hard. You don't have these players.
Well, and also Benzema fuels himself by being involved. Ronaldo could go 90 minutes without seeing the ball and then score in the 90th minute, ice cold.
I would say Benzema is the closest, and this might sound like really kind of crazy to a lot of people, but Benzema for me is the closest thing that Messi was. Messi is like that 10/9 type of player that people were like James, he wanted to be that player, but he lacks the being in that drop AMC position where you're surrounded by everybody, but you're keeping your cool. There's
and also scoring a bunch of goals at the same time.
It's really because all pressure is on you. Your AMC, it's literally the toughest position. That's why literally they phased out. Right now that position is phased out. Nobody wants Isco's. Isco is actually one of the good ones in that position. Nobody wants James's. Benzema is that guy. That's why Isco is not getting any minutes, because Benzema is that guy that can drop deep, be AMC and a forward at the same time. It's hard. I don't know anybody else. There's very few players that can do it.
Yeah, and because of that, you're not going to replace him with another Benzema.
No way.
It's the same thing with Modric and Kroos.
And that's why they wanted to try Modric in Benzema's position, because Modric is so good at 10 and kind of forward 10, like AMC, but he lacks that. You miss Modric in the back. You can play him as false 9 if you have equivalent Modric, but we don't have it, so we lose in the midfield.
That's right, yeah.
Like you were saying before.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I can ask my question.
Okay.
So my question for you, Keon, is I wrote it down. So a common English media narrative right now for Real Madrid is we're not playing well in the Champions League, and PSG and Chelsea have faltered, and rather than respecting the play of Madrid. And I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but let's say if we beat Man City and Liverpool, do you think
we're winning it all?
Yeah, or
we don't lose
do you think we would then have the respect of the English tabloid with this team this year?
No.
Or do you think that
they'll find a way?
Madrid is will the tabloid still be saying we're getting lucky, and or do we have to get a Galactico to gain the respect of?
That's a great question. I think the English media is something that's driven me nuts since I was a kid. I became a fan in '98, like you, Rob, and in that 2 years after that, I think, or 1 year after that, we had La Novena, and the eighth title when we beat Valencia in the final, Champions League final. We beat Manchester United and Bayern Munich leading up to that, which was the first time ever that a club has beaten the finalists from the previous year en route to winning the Champions League. It's never happened before. Real Madrid did this for the first time in that year. And I just remember the English media at that time, we were playing Manchester United. Obviously, this is the famous Redondo Taconazo, the famous play, right? And the whole narrative at that time was Real Madrid were just going to get absolutely smoked, waxed, destroyed. And they were just shell-shocked. And after that, after Real Madrid went into Old Trafford and won, everything in the English media was exactly what you're describing. Manchester United meltdown, breakdown, they let this team come in and do this, etc. It won't change. And look, it's not like any media's really that much better in whatever country you go in. The Spanish media has
one of the best games ever in Champions League.
Incredible.
That might be one of the best.
If I don't know if you guys have a chance, but if you there was a player for Real Madrid who was like an unsung hero kind of, but not that good but who played in that game was Jeremy. And Jeremy, if you search Managing Madrid Jeremy, he actually came on our podcast, and I asked him about that experience because he comes in as a sub. At that time, it was I think around the same time where Manchester were making a little bit of a comeback, and Del Bosque brings on Jeremy, and he's like, "You go in." And
he was a good player.
He had his moments. He scored against Bayern in the Champions League, I remember. So I'm sorry, man. This is my biggest weakness. I just go on tangents. So it's always been like this, right? And I think what I think particularly drives me nuts is that people don't watch Real Madrid play. They don't do it. They're generalists. So the people you see on TV covering these Champions League games, that's often the only time they're watching Real Madrid is for those games. This was most famous example of obviously Michael Richards, is it, who was like, I didn't know Benzema was this good, or I guess I'm ready now to put him on Harry Kane's level.
And gets fired back. That was great.
Yeah, and you know what the great thing is? We had Thierry Henry on the panel. I considered him one of us because his reaction was the exact reaction that we all had. He was like, he didn't even use words. He was like,
for me, when
he's realistic, dude, man. He's like always realistic.
Yeah. When I read that, I was actually thought that's a meme. That didn't happen in reality.
Yeah, didn't you write for 4-4-2 at one point?
Yeah.
Well, did you get any, did they tell you to keep a little bit,
No.
That was like pretty English based.
Well, that part of the reason I don't write for them anymore is because they basically stopped writing about anything outside of England.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Did they tell you to not write?
No, I mean it was just very hard to work for them consistently because of that. Because they
was
focused.
Pretty big at the time, and I was like,
yeah, I grew up reading 442, but I don't know. I think they're still pretty big, but I think
there's 433.
So I don't know if you guys had a chance to see if you had a chance to see 538's projections for the Champions League, but they have right now Real Madrid as the third favorite, which I think is accurate, by the way. I think that makes sense. I think Real Madrid are the third best team in the competition, but they have them at a 10% chance of winning this tournament. And I think to me is we've all seen Real Madrid win the Champions League when they're not the best team in Europe. It happens a lot. It's part of the reason why we have 13 more than anyone else is because we can figure out how to win even when we're not the best team. But I think what matters is that we win. We play well when it really matters. Whereas teams who are amazing all season, they don't have that psychological ability, and they can actually flip it the other way, and they can just shit the bed at that moment, like a PSG.
Which explained the Clásico. I was arguing with people we don't want to waste or try to get injured in this game. We have nothing to do with winning this game. I was only hoping 2-0. I knew it's going to be lost. I knew they were going to push us to kind of go, because they had nothing to lose. They wanted us to lose something.
Yeah.
Literally, that was what it was. For us, Champions League, La Liga is in play.
Yeah. And
for them, nothing was in play. They had to prove something. We didn't.
So I think we can kind of guess what the narratives would be. If Real Madrid wins the Champions League this year,
fluke.
So who's going to be the goalkeeper that Benzema puts a spell on this year? Who's going to give the ball to Benzema for an open net? I'm not saying either way. Maybe Real Madrid go and just absolutely destroy Manchester City and Villarreal or Liverpool. Who knows? But I don't think this will change. But I don't necessarily blame them for that. I mean, they focus on their own country. They focus on their paper. If you look at the difference in Mundo Deportivo and Marca, there's a war going in within Spain of just these crazy headlines that just makes people buy the papers and put the things. You know. Of course, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's just that wherever you go, there's going to be those narratives, and there's nothing we can do about that. What we're good at doing is just celebrating and laughing at all those things, right? And but I think part of the problem is that most pundits are generalists and they don't watch Real Madrid play. You know, it's the same thing. Like I don't watch Manchester United play. So but I know a lot about Real Madrid. But if someone put me on TV and asked me to analyze Manchester United, I'd be underqualified. But I think but this is the problem. The problem is I'm willing to admit that publicly. But these guys don't admit it. They'd have to just fabricate. And I have a lot of really good friends who work with these big companies, and I text them and back and forth. And these people I'm friends with, they're not those people, but they will tell me, like, look, off air, 5 minutes before the recording, these are the hosts of the show telling me this, that like 5 minutes before the recording, we're talking off air, and these guys don't know anything about Real Madrid. So no, I'm serious. So what you'll often see is if they put these guys on the spot on TV, they'll just say like, "Well, Real Madrid are a good team. They have Benzema and Modric." Yeah. Like, that's their analysis, right? And so it is what it is. It is what it is.
But isn't that with the general media the case where?
Now, I'm talking about general media.
Right now, but sports media also. Do you think that people like you will eventually take over? Where like people will be like, it's just CNBC, it's just CNBC, or it's just ESPN, where they will not even take them seriously. Where people like you, right now, if you look at the media, people on YouTube have more power than people on major media.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit.
Do you think that people like? Well, yeah, I think that's what's heading to sports too.
Well,
where people like you who are unbiased.
But
don't have any, you know.
But that's why I'm not mainstream, and I'll never be mainstream, is because I'm not.
But you might come.
I'm not controversial enough to be that famous. So, like, if I wanted to get famous, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
But
listen, people. I don't listen to sports news.
No, I know.
I would come to your podcast.
Exactly. But so that's why you're here.
Exactly.
We're a niche podcast, so.
It's coming up. It's coming.
It's growing for sure, but we're always going to be in the lane of the 10% of followers. Like, you know, so I maybe, but like generally speaking.
Fabrizio Romano, for example.
Yeah.
I'll just put this guy. Right now, every kid you ask, say a transfer. You know what they're going to tell you? Fabrizio Romano didn't confirm it. Yeah. He is nothing major. That's all I'm saying.
That's what I'm also saying.
He's a guy like you, Kian. He's a guy like you. He's a guy that started like you. Yes, he's a guy like you.
Well,
I think your time will actually come. 10 years from now, maybe you'll be like 40, 50 or whatever. You might have more power than you have right now.
Okay, we'll talk about it after the podcast.
No, I think
I would still
think it will happen.
Agree with what Kian said. I would not like to bring controversial stuff. You know, in what you're doing is basically the right path. On a long run, I don't know whether it will be successful. I don't know because I'm not in this field. But what I see, how the graph I see, or maybe just from a vision, I think this is the right path. I would not alter.
Okay, so let me, Rob, I know you're there. I don't know if you guys want to go deep on this for 1 second, just for 1 second. And I feel like I can gauge the interest because this is the most engaged. Oh, you guys have all been all podcasts. I can see the eyes locked in. But so this is the way I see it. So one of the most frustrating things for me as a journalist is that if my boss sends me a report every month with our podcast, our website statistics. Okay, everything that's written tactically.
Nobody reads it.
Everything, like, I'm talking about articles that take weeks to write. You go back and watch film, you study the data. People don't know how long it takes to actually cut the film, clip it, upload it, embed it, describe it. It's not a one-day process. All of those articles get like 10% of our traffic. And so people always complain, like, why do you guys do clickbait headlines? Why you guys have lost your soul? And like, dude, the only reason we can feed our families is because those articles exist. So something's not adding up. So if you guys want more of a tactical analysis, then click on it. And but you're not. So you're voting with your clicks. My ideal world is everyone just reads our tactical articles and everyone loves that. That's 100% of the traffic, but we wouldn't survive. So what I had to come to terms with and accept is that it's okay. You kind of have to ride the wave and just accept that. But the 10% of that pie gets bigger every year. Mm-hmm. So it's okay to only have 10% because that number is still pretty huge. And so that's what so this podcast will grow. It has been growing, and these rooms will fill up more and more every year. But it's still going to be a tiny fraction of the bigger pie of people who just don't care. But what we're doing here, as much as we love this, a lot of people just don't care about it. They want to just tweet bullshit, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong, but it's just like, so that's why this is the niche that we've set for ourselves. That's why, like, you know, even that Sky Sports TV appearance that you spoke about last week, they told me before I went on it, it was like, look, we know you love your tactics, but our listeners are not going to care about that. Our viewers are just like, I'm going to ask you basic questions.
One or another.
And I still squeeze it in. I was like, I'm fighting my fight. I said like half space. I said like counterattack and transition.
And they mentioned it. That the guy was like, yeah, you want to present your tactics.
Yeah.
When I was listening to that.
Till today, I love every single article this guy, on whatever is published on Managing, except one. There's only one, and that one is when he broke out. He specifically broke out the Sergio Ramos headers. From that day, Sergio Ramos was not able to score.
That was Om. It wasn't me. It was Om. So this.
Was it Om?
It was Om.
Yeah, he broke out like so.
Yeah, and how do you know what the future holds?
I feel like every manager took that out.
I think this is the future, you know.
Stop Ramos's run from out of the box to inside. And so I went back and I started looking at those highlights, and really he would run. So then the crowd come in, he'd run, and last minute headers, right? We won that league that year. Om broke it out. And boom, it's gone.
He cursed it, yeah.
He cursed it.
The best is we get comments sometimes of people getting mad at us for...
Yeah.
Because they're like...
Jinxing.
No, it's not jinxing. They get mad because, you guys, people are going to read this and then they're going to adjust their tactics against us. Like, dude, Thomas Tuchel is not reading a Managing Madrid article and adjusting his tactics, I promise you. Maybe...
Ancelotti doesn't even know his tactics. How the hell will people know?
David Ancelotti knows his tactics.
No, I'm just kidding.
Rob, I know you've had your hand up for a while, so sorry.
No, it's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a great question.
Yeah.
I actually thought, thinking on it, it's actually what led me to find Managing Madrid, because I'm a big podcast. I have a commute, and so I'm a big podcast listener.
Yeah.
And it was very frustrating to me to hear otherwise very thoughtful soccer commentators and analysts. When it came to, they're primarily England-based and Premier League-based, when it came to talking, like, outside of the Premier League, just, like, how, quite frankly, surface level and dismissive they were. Two things that definitely jumped out to me was the one that, it's not Madrid-related, but they refer, it's when Aymeric Laporte got transferred to Man City, and he was described as like a tricky, skillful defender, but like, will he be able to match up to Premier League physicality?
Classic narrative.
Yeah. And it was like, you clearly have not even Googled this guy because he's a massive human being,
Yeah.
And then the one that really, I was like, I just need to find someone that like can talk about La Liga, not just Real Madrid. When someone referred to the era of Madrid where they won 3 Champions League in a row, 4 and 5 years, and I forget who it was, but he's literally one of my favorite analysts, commentators on soccer. But he described that Madrid team as like unremarkable, and like that it's one of the most unremarkable Champions League eras of Champions League winners, and aside from, I think he said maybe Ronaldo, there's not a name you could pick out as like legend. And I was like, this is literally one of the best midfield trio in like modern
In the
football.
history.
You know, yeah, it's not tiki taka, but like
It's amazing how PR marketing works, right?
Right?
It's
Yeah, yeah.
$5
And, like, I
million
think for me, that was,
Casemiro
like, a
and
final
$30 million
straw.
Modric. You know,
And
this
it
is the
was,
cheapest probably midfield ever.
That's also a good. I didn't even think about.
Look
that.
at the transfer.
yeah,
How
that
much
is
they
true.
cost? How much
That
they
is,
cost?
yeah. How much they cost?
5
Then-
million Casemiro.
Yeah.
Cross was
Yeah.
how much?
Yeah.
Free?
First was
20,
peanuts.
20.
No, it
Yeah.
was like even. I thought it was lower than that, but
I think we offered them Xabi Alonso
And
for
that's
that transfer, and then Modric was like 32
But like,
or something.
Yeah.
to your point, or maybe my spin
20,
is
right?
like the answer is probably never, and like,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I've come to the point where I almost think it's funny, or it's like a point of pride, where it's
Yeah.
I
like,
wish
Yeah,
I
no,
knew. I was
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
this.
you know, where it's like,
That was well said by you too, and that's a better answer to your first question to me. Like, you guys helped me sort through, like other news and like get like a realistic look at Real Madrid.
Do you like Chicago
I
Fire?
appreciate it. I'm getting into it.
You
Shaqiri's
go a
nice
lot
to
to
watch.
games or what?
We just went to last week's game, or no, 2 weeks ago for my brother's bachelor party. It was good. Yeah.
We got Shaqiri, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Schweinsteiger still playing?
No, he's
like,
Slonina. He could be. I'm gonna make the call now. In 2026, he'll be the U.S. men's starting goalkeeper.
that's the Chicago Fire goalkeeper.
He's super good.
Wait,
Look out for him.
Slonina?
He's 17 years old. And super
Where's he
good.
from?
He's from Edison, Illinois, right here. Polish descent. That's my prediction there.
Listen, Tim,
Well,
thank you so much.
thanks so
I
much,
appreciate it. Thanks for
appreciate
round of applause for Tim. We got a couple more, right?
I'll go.
Okay. Someone can say, yeah. Drew, right?
Anton.
Oh, Drew's Anton and Drew. Got it. Okay.
We got a few more. Biggest man up there in the back.
We got time. Yeah. We have the room for how long? I don't know why I'm looking at you. I guess are you the, well, you're the guy who turned the buzz off, so I just assume you run the show. 5 more minutes? 5 more hours. 5 p.m. Okay. All right. So welcome to the show. 2012, 2017. I was way off. Okay, 2017. Welcome to the show. Tell us your money, just a story, and then.
My story is not exciting as a lot of your guys' stories. Basically just started playing FIFA with my buddies back in high school, and I wasn't even a soccer fan back then, but I just saw Real Madrid was really good. They had Ronaldo, so I was playing a bunch of games with them, and then they won the Champions League. This was FIFA 13. They won the Champions League that year. Then it was the World Cup that summer, so I was just getting really into soccer. Came across your podcast on the blog.
Nice.
Been a listener ever since.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's the FIFA too, man. The game works.
Yeah, so
Get
now
some
I'm
new
all
friends
in,
around.
buying all the Manscaped gear and stuff. So
That's great.
yeah, that's about it.
That's awesome. Just reminded me we have to do trivia today too, because I have a Manscaped thing to give away. I completely forgot. But yeah, sorry. Continue. Yeah.
Yeah, so
What's on your mind in terms of questions and stuff?
yeah, I guess my question is, how does the team go back to scoring without just relying on Benzema and Vinicius to a lesser extent, like involving everyone else basically?
$1 million question.
The great question. It's a great question, and the answer is you either sign more superstars after they. I mean, Vinicius is not going anywhere anytime soon, but Benzema maybe a couple years. Although who knows? Who might say how many years Benzema has left? I feel like he could have 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if the answer is not more superstars, it's a tactician. I mean, that's the other way around it. Part of the reason why Real Madrid, we've been winning all these, even getting past Chelsea and PSG. Let's do a quick poll. How much of it is down to tactics? Even if someone believed that, they wouldn't dare. How much of it is down to just superstars taking
Just
over?
one superstar.
Well,
No.
Modric,
Yeah, true.
Courtois.
No, Modric,
Courtois, yeah.
Rodrigo. I would give Rodrigo some credit as well.
Yeah,
He's really
Nah, the
good.
PSG game was literally all Benzema.
Yeah, it was.
Literally all
Although, no,
Benzema.
Modric had that amazing run. And
Without even looking, he did not even look where Benzema was on that cross. Like how...
And
This is about Chelsea game.
Oh,
He didn't even look at Benzema.
You're right. We missed a tactician But when it comes to giving credit, I would give credit to I love this guy, Valverde. He has horse. He has his legs are horses.
Who is this?
Valverde.
Horse legs? Oh, Valverde. Oh, okay.
Valverde. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, no, I just couldn't hear you.
So that guy, Rodrigo, I would give Rodrigo the credit. I would give, and somewhere credit goes to Lucas Vazquez as well. I don't know.
Camavinga off the bench. I mean, these are all important factors, right? But so all of these contribute. There's no like.
It's open.
It's not just one thing, but it's mostly. If you look at it, it's one. So one of the interesting things, the discussions that we had and people submitted questions about after that Chelsea second leg was that someone had pointed out, if you look at the body language of Real Madrid's players, of the leaders on the field, when we went down 3-0 after, who scored the third goal? Was it Timo Werner? I think it was? Werner, yeah. If you look at the body language of the leaders like Carvajal, Modric, Benzema, they're all confident.
Yeah.
And to see that image, and forgive me, Barca fans who are listening to this online, the contrast between our body language in that moment to, Barca, like you remember like the games against Roma, Liverpool, you look at Barca's best player and Messi's literally just like this.
It looks like his cat died.
Messi was
he looks terrified. And so
he's the worst leader, yeah. That's like Puyol used to be like their leader. After Puyol, I'm like Busquets, what? And I'm like thinking right now, Busquets leaving that team, which it might happen next season. I was telling people like, listen, until you have Busquets, you're good. The moment this guy dips, because everybody was talking, you like him too, Frankie de Jong.
I don't know.
I don't really think he'll fill the shoes of Busquets.
Well, there's good players and then there's leaders. It's like, and so like we're lucky that we've had both. We've had the combination of both in one player throughout the team, right?
A bunch of leaders in one team.
Yeah, and so we have that, and so this is part of the reason I always argue superstars are for Real Madrid specifically. This is not apply to every team, but for Real Madrid specifically because we haven't been known to have tacticians as our managers. Superstars compensate for that, and so to have those kinds of leaders and stars in that moment, because to me, it's the Chelsea comeback started with Modric just outside the boot, which like it's not only. So there's a lot of elements to that because it's interesting. Modric up until that point was not actually having a good game, and so to be able to flip a switch in that moment, it's a combination. I don't have any scientific evidence of this, but to me, it's a combination of a bunch of things. One is mental fortitude, fitness, pride and love, some of the intangibles to make sure we go down fighting, individual brilliance, technical brilliance, but also in that moment, it's when you've been playing that much football, your decision making isn't as sharp. It's not normal to execute what he did in that moment because it's one thing to know like, okay, I have Vinicius up there for the through ball. My stupid brain was like, well, that's the pass. But then to see that, but it's another thing to see it and to be like, I'm going to do this. But then to actually execute it in that moment was like, how much, like, I just assume if we did an autopsy on Modric, like 100 years from now, like you cut him open and he's just, there's no blood. It's just like, just ice. Yeah. It's just like.
And he's saying it right now. But he explained the same thing in one of his articles. Like, and literally, Vinicius was in the front.
Did you see that thing when Benzi was telling Vinicius?
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Literally, the same thing happened. I was like, what? And then the other goal was Modric and his son, Rodrigo. And at the end, did you see the video I posted? He was literally at the end of the game yelling at Rodrigo, hijo. And then I caught this moment. I posted on my page.
Yeah.
He literally is calling Rodrigo my son, and literally these two connections. One was like Modric, and up until like Rodrigo came in, Modric was like, yeah, something's off. But Rodrigo came in, and this connection literally clicked, and they scored the goal. But the other one was like Vinicius. Benzema was literally telling Vinicius what to do.
But that one, so I might be in the minority on this one, and I thought that was an amazing video, but like, we have no idea what they're saying. Like, he's just like pointing at his hand, going like this, and he's just like, yeah.
But
And then all of a sudden, like, wow, Benzema planned for Rodrigo to slip, and like all this.
Look at it close, it's exactly how it actually played out. It's crazy. I know it's crazy.
So
no, I don't think it's crazy. I just didn't know what they were talking about specifically. But
from the markings, it just seemed like, I don't know how precisely Benzema was explaining, but I cannot read. But from a high level perspective, it was just like, we'll have to catch Reece James up so you can do your run.
Yeah.
Rest after that, that's what I understood. Basically, from that perspective, I was just trying to understand that they have to free Vinicius. Reece James was not letting him be free. Once he got free, boom, we saw the result. So
I think it was also just, I mean, I don't know, but part of it was telling him to just hold the cross. Just have a little hesitation. Yeah. Don't rush the cross, because if you just look up and see where we are, and another underrated, I'm sure you've heard it, but we analyzed Rodrigo's run in that play too, was massive for just Rodrigo. Like Rodrigo goes on skates for a second because he sees Rodrigo making a run, and all of a sudden he's caught between Benzema and Rodrigo, and he's like, oh, and then he slips.
The finish was insane by Rodrigo too.
That's the other thing. I almost felt bad for him because the Modric assist was so amazing that we forgot. Like, wow. Yeah. Rodrigo's finish.
And he's a left-footed too, right?
He's right, I think.
He's right.
So there's another video. I don't know if you guys saw it. Managing Madrid retweeted it on their Twitter account, but it's what I'm speaking about, the body language of the players. Because there was that, when Marcos Alonso scores the goal that's disallowed, if you look at Real Madrid's when VAR says that it's no goal, the Real Madrid players literally celebrate like it's a goal, and they start roaring, and like they're ready, like, you know what I mean. So that's a cool thing we have that I think will always give us a chance, even if we're underdogs against City and Liverpool.
So when everything happened and Real Madrid won, I saw this tweet from Modric that quitting it is not an option. That just gave me goosebumps. Like, this guy's look at his age, and he's tweeting that, not Rodrigo or Vinicius. They're not tweeting. This guy's tweeting that. So when you have these type of leaders in the team,
exactly. It's a good example. Yeah.
You don't quit. The future that coming up, the kids who are playing down, they see that we have leaders like this. So that's coming in the blood. When Cristiano was here.
They also been through this. They also been through this like 4 times. They won it.
And especially
they know when the teams are the weakest.
Yeah, when in Woodburg's game, I saw that fire in Cristiano. He was like, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to take this tie from 2-0 up to 3-2 and win it.
Well, Cruz has a great quote about this a few years ago when we beat Bayern in Munich and we weren't playing well, and someone asked him, and he was like, we've been in every hostile back against the wall situation imaginable. These things don't affect us anymore. Like, to go through all of that with the same group almost.
Ramos scored the header?
No, it was 2018, I think. Later with, I think Asensio scored in Munich or something like that.
Asensio from a distance,
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thanks.
it. Thank you. Drew, you want to come up? And then Alberto, maybe? No? Okay. Okay, welcome. I like it's like a training outfit. Yeah. All right, so Drew is here. Drew, tell us about your story and let us know your question too.
Yeah. So it kind of started. I studied abroad in high school in Spain, and being from the U.S., not really big into soccer before that. But seeing my host family are big Madrid fans, and then actually going to tour to Bernabeu, definitely got hooked, and then and following ever since. Kind of found you guys on Twitter. Obviously been listening to you guys for a while.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you so much.
How it started.
Thank you. That's great. Round of applause for Drew.
My question was more, the game against City. Looks like maybe Mendy and Marcelo might not be playing. We'll see, but kind of wondering how you would line up defensively, facing City, considering how that second leg went, how we struggled. I mean, we got it done, but kind of seeing how you kind of approach that maybe differently.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm actually amazed. We're 2 hours into the podcast and we haven't talked Manchester City at all. So this is the first time. So thanks for bringing it up. I think Mendy will be back just in time, which I just don't know how fit he's going to be. And that's what worries me. It's one thing to have theoretical Mendy defensive wall on the field. It's another thing to be like rushed back and then have that game against PSG in the first leg where he was also rushed back. And he had a lot of trouble, difficulty against Di Maria and Achraf, right? Just physically, he didn't look right. And that's what worries me most. I will say, it's so funny when we talk about winning the Champions League. So much luck is involved in just timing of things. You know how every time there's a Champions League draw, a lot of Real Madrid fans will be like, we'll be anyone. Bring on City, bring on Liverpool, bring on this. And I'm just like, man, no. Give me Dinamo Kiev. Give me Benfica. I don't know why I mentioned poor Dinamo Kiev. They're not even in this tournament. I just thought of them. But it's just, to me, like, you just keep winning, giving yourself the best chance, buying yourself time. And now you're in a situation where you go against Manchester City, who are kind of wounded, and just because of timing. We saw Atletico punch them in the mouth like a bunch of times on second leg, and City shithoused their way to advancing. I only watched the first half of the Liverpool game today, so I don't know what happened in the second half, but there was a little comeback. But
trailing 2-1, right?
They were down 3-0 at halftime, and it wasn't even close. And Liverpool were pressing, and winning the ball over and over again, and it was just a bloodbath. And to me, it's like, I mean, that's a great way to just beat City, whether it's the low block approach that Atletico had, although in the second half it wasn't, they really came out to play. To me, you got to really bully them and really throw some bodies around, because the alternative is you let one of the best possession teams in the world have the ball and get comfortable. And that's an aspect that I don't want Real Madrid to fall into that trap, because it's really hard to get out of that once you surrender that much control. And we saw it against PSG in the first leg, most notably. Yeah. And that was amended a little bit against Chelsea. In the first leg.
We played a low block in that game. It was tactical, I think. A lot of people think we lost control, but I think it was all tactical.
Which game? The
first PSG game, we were just going out to concede, and now we conceded like 92nd minute. That would have been a if that game ended 0-0, everybody would be like, Ancelotti's brilliant.
That's right. I think from a results perspective, it worked. I would also say that PSG were not taking their chances.
They have all the greatest players. Come on.
And that's the thing. But like, the problem with that was Real Madrid were so deep that they couldn't put together a counterattack, especially when you're facing a very athletic, high-energy young team that has Achraf and Nuno Mendes as your fullbacks and Di Maria and all these guys who can press you. They just were positionally inferior to PSG that night, and for that reason, we didn't even see Vinicius and Benzema get the ball for a second.
But don't you think that's tactical? From some standpoint,
well, that's what I'm saying. It is tactical.
We're trying to preserve some of the energy to push for 45 minutes. We're like all of our players are aged. We're like want to try to, kind of fight for one half per game.
Yes and no. But I also think we were a little bit lucky in that sense, and I don't think the game plan was for Benzema. I don't think the game plan was for Vinicius and Benzema not to be involved at all. Right?
True. But let's be honest, right? Somebody saved a penalty.
That's true.
Game.
True, that was also huge.
That changed the game entirely.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You got Courtois on the back, you got Benzema on top.
And so, like, to me, like, I'm a nerd, right? So I always look at XG after the game to see, like, where the results were. Like, was it a fair result? Did we get lucky? Did they get lucky? And this is a big thing against Chelsea last season, where everyone was like, well, we only lost, by 2-0 and stuff in the second leg. That XG was like 800 to 0. And like, and even if you look at the Chelsea one this round, it was kind of the same. Again, it doesn't mean that Real Madrid didn't deserve to advance. It just means that for the majority of the game, they were being outplayed and they had some luck. And every champion needs luck. It's not a knock. It's just so. Anyways, my point with the City game is that I'm worried if we do that again, give them control, because what they want is control. They want to be comfortable on the ball. They want their defenders to look up and be like, oh, great, no one's marking me. I can just play this pass over and over again. And so that's what works. What was your question?
It was more of like how we line up defensively.
Oh, right.
Mendy's not.
Yeah. So I think Mendy's going to be available. And then, but the thing is, we're so thin that it kind of picks itself.
Nobody.
Yeah, it's not like we're choosing from all these options. So to me, it kind of picks itself. If Mendy can't play, it'll probably be Marcelo or Nacho or Alaba. I think Chelsea made a huge mistake against us where they didn't even test Marcelo defensively. They didn't bring Ziyech on until the 100th minute. And then when they brought him on, they sent him to the left side, which made little sense to me because Marcelo had a really good game, but they didn't even try to make him uncomfortable on defense on a game where Mendy wasn't even there, and I didn't understand that. I didn't understand what Tuchel's thought process was there. But so I think City would test Marcelo more than Chelsea would, and also I think City will pin Real Madrid deeper than Chelsea will, which means that Marcelo won't get many opportunities in the final third that he did against Chelsea. So that's what worries me. So I think if you do that, you might have to look at Nacho. And the Nacho Alaba player. Someone literally guts the shivers.
Poor guy. Nacho is left, back, right, center, forward, whatever. Nacho.
Yeah, so and I think maybe you can have some interchangeability with Alaba where on certain sequences they could switch positions, center back, left back, depending on what the sequence is. So, but it kind of picks itself in my opinion. Let's do a quick poll. If they're both healthy, who would start Lucas Vazquez as the right back? Versus Carvajal.
No, I'll start.
Okay, one for Vazquez, and I'm assuming everyone else Carvajal. Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious, yeah. Okay.
What about Marcelo and Mendy? Who would start Mendy or who would start Marcelo?
Well, I think if both are healthy, then Mendy.
I'd start Marcelo over Mendy.
And so, let me just justify why I said Lucas Vazquez.
He wants to still have friends after the podcast. It's okay, we still love you, bro. It's okay.
I like Vazquez. I like Vazquez. It's just sometimes what I've seen in his gameplay is he runs up, but when he loses the ball, I've seen a lot of time. Carvajal takes time to come back. That's not the case with Vazquez.
Okay. So you mean from a defensive transition reliability?
Transition reliability is more on Vazquez because I think he loses hope. That's what I see from Carvajal. He's like, oh shoot, Allah. You don't do that. You just run back. Vazquez, because he sees that and he's like, okay, I have to go back. I have to get in the position. He got muscled twice, I think, in Chelsea game. He played well. Carvajal played well. But when Vazquez came in, I think we had more, that right back position was more strengthened because now there was a sense in the team that they were more comfortable having Vazquez do the run than Carvajal do that one.
He had the energy in the legs, and he was also important against PSG too. But you reminded me of something, and to your question, I wanted to answer this. I wanted to include this in the answer too, and this goes back to timing, the importance of timing. Right now, City are also in a situation where they have fullback issues.
Yeah.
While Cancelo is amazing, Kyle Walker. First of all, Cancelo is not even going to play against us the first day because he's suspended. That's massive. Because City use their fullback so much. Now Kyle Walker is also injured. And he's doubtful. Kevin De Bruyne, doubtful. Kevin De Bruyne is one of the most terrifying players to play against in the world. Yes. He is absolute Armageddon when he has the ball at his feet. This is all timing. And not to, again, I think as you said, not to count, or I don't remember if you said that, Tim, or you said that, Drew, but just not to get ahead of ourselves. But these are just things that can work in our favor because City use their fullbacks like crazy. It's a huge part of their offense.
Especially Walker.
Yeah, and so and Walker was amazing against Atletico because he was so important in stopping so many of those transition attacks and that Atletico were throwing at them. And so when he was on the field, he was super important. Then he got injured, but so not having Kyle Walker and Cancelo potentially, and having Zinchenko there as a left back, that's massive for us. Or at least, if not massive, it mitigates some of maybe Carvajal not being at his peak or Mendy being injured. It may balance out. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but just something.
No, I completely agree. One more thing that Vazquez brings is he frees if Rodrigo plays. If Rodrigo plays on the right wing, he frees Rodrigo. Rodrigo is, I don't know, but I've seen this. This is just me, and I'm not that good. Maybe my understanding is not that better. But when Vazquez plays, Rodrigo is more comfortable doing the front runs because he knows that I get the ball. He knows that Vazquez knows where I will run. With Carvajal, I think Rodrigo is more aligned to, he lose, I have to run back to cover him up. That's what I see a lot of time. I don't know. It's just me.
Yeah, no, that's fair.